Runick steps into the light this week to show us that the OCG is doing some crazy things with this deck and many, many more. You guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. So we're going to be looking at Runick to start things off today, and I will tell you, in terms of innovations with this deck, I didn't actually think that the OCG would go crazy and, play something like Card Demise in this deck. I guess it does facilitate additional draw power within the deck. It does give you access to some particularly, interesting, I guess, additional features that you can do with this deck, but okay. Definitely interesting. So we're playing one of the big balls in the main deck, 2 copies of the Amano Iwata, 2 copies of Raigeki because standard board breakers are going to be pretty good. We have 1 copy of Pot of Desires for draw power, triple copies of Card Demise for the absolute savagery that this card is. I mean, yeah, it's locked behind a once per turn, but it still says draw until you have 3 in your hand. Pretty good to me. We have 1 Terraforming, triple copies of Duality for filtering, 1 copy of the Golden Droplets, triple copies of the Freezing Curses, triple copies of Just the Tip, 1 copy of Dispel, and then we have triple copies of Slumber, triple copies of the Pop the Specimen Monster, 1 big copy of Raging Storm, triple copies of Destruction, and then we have 1 Dimensional Fissure. Yeah, the OCG is just focusing on one of these, which is interesting. Triple copies of the Field Spell, and then we have 2 copies of There Can Only Be One, 2 Skill Drain, and 2 copies of Reverie of the Warlords. Down here in the next deck, we have triple copies of Hugin, triple copies of Moonin, triple Gary, and we have triple copies of Freki. This thing is actually pretty cool. When attack is declared involving this card, you can banish top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. Neither player takes battle damage from battle involving this card. This card is destroyed by battle card effect. Target 1 Runick quick play spell card in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So it's pretty good value there. And here in the side deck, we have 1 Big Ball, 1 Raigeki, 1 Lightning Storm, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 1 2 Dark Rulers, 1 Dimensional Fissure, 2 DD Dynamite, and then we have 2 copies of Evenly Matched, 2 Paradox Fusion, and then 2 copies of Dark Bribe here, wrapping up your Runick take. It's actually pretty cool. Next up is a Plant Therion list that I saw. I think it went 5-1 out of its event this past week. And now it's actually a little bit rarer to see plant good stuff actually do something. And every time I get the chance to see this deck, do well, it's always kind of interesting in my opinion. So you definitely don't really see much of this post, the Rika cards, but you can tell that we're even trying a little splash of the Therion stuff in here with some Rika cards. So we have triple copies of Sun Sea Genius Loki as a 3 of. We have 1 copy of Mardell, 1 copy of Regulus, 2 copies of Boreas, 1 copy of the Snowdrop the Rika Fairy, 1 copy of Mudon. We have 1 the World Heavyweight Carrot Champion, 1 copy of Cactus Bouncer, 1 Rika Snow Princess, 1 Rose Girl, 2 copies of Lone Fire Blossom, triple copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, triple copies of Maxi for the draw power, 1 copy of the Sunseed Twin, 1 Aurora Mage Laurel, 1 Spore, 1 Angelica, and 1 Rika Petal. And then we have triple copies of Unexpected Guy because this card's so good. We have 1 Sunvine Sowing, 2 Rika Glamour, 2 Called by the Grave with the 1 Crossout, 1 copy of Sunvine Shrine, 1 copy of Rika Arrival, 1 copy of the Big Discalcium, 2 copies of Imperm, and 1 Rika Sheet. Extra deck down here, of course, you got all the Dryas's, 2 copies of Healer, 1 copy of Sunvine Thrasher, 1 copy of Peony, 3 Jasmine. That might feel like a lot, but I guess it works out. We have 1 Malias, 1 copy of Begalancer, 1 Teardrop, 1 Sacred Tree, and 1 copy of the Moral Jam. Side deck here we got triple Nibiru, 1 Pankratops, triple copies of Ghost Reaper, 1 Kitagalos, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, triple Evenly Matched, and triple copies of Solemn Judgment here. Wrapping up your Plant Turbo list. Not too bad. Next up is some Pendulum Magicians. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't get the chance to see a lot of Pendulum Magician list doing things here. I love how this Black Fang does not want to load in here. This is basically going to be your Starving Venom shenanigans here. I've actually noticed a lot more Starving Venom kind of starting to show up as of late in the OCG, and I'm kind of curious to know, if this will stick around, considering, your summoning mechanics to make this are so incredibly easy to abuse, just to FTK your opponent. It's actually kind of interesting. So we have 1 copy of Astrograph Sorcerer, triple copies of La Fenrir, triple copies of Oath Dragon, 1 Chronograph Sorcerer, 1 copy of the Stargazer, 1 Luster Dragon. We have triple copies of the Squirrel Combat, triple copies of Black Fang, triple copies of Wisdom Eye, 2 copies of Double Iris, 1 copy of the Performapal Celestial Magician, triple copies of good old Pendulum Sorcerer, triple copies of Purple Poison, triple copies of the Harmonizing, 1 Time Gazer, triple Ash Blossom, triple Maxi, 1 copy of the Performapal Odd Eye Synchron, triple Duelist Alliance, 1 Star Pendulum Graph, and 1 Time Pendulum Graph. Extra deck here, you have the 1 Beyond the Pendulum, 1 Electromite, 1 Selene with 1 Apo, 1 Boral Sword, 1 copy of Abyss Dweller, 1 Baguski, 1 Time Star, 1 number 38, 1 copy of Ignister, 1 Boral Savage, 1 Baron de Fleur, and triple copies of the Starving Venom Supreme King Busted Dragon. Down in the extra deck, we got triple Apex Avian because we can Pendulum summon it, lol. 1 Druid Worm with triple copies of Magnamut, 2 copies of Effect Veiler, 1 Harpies Feather Duster, 2 Called by the Grave, and triple copies of Infinite Permanence here, wrapping up your take for Pendulums. And like I said, maybe if we had such a good card still exist in our side of the game, we might get the chance to see some relatively cool things. Oh boy! It's a Shizu Tier Elements. Now, seeing like the restrictions that happened on the last list for this, you know, where Keldo got straight limited build. I know, I cry. You know, we see Hoffins here get hit. They're still playing the best card in the deck. If a monster is, or a monster is normal or special summon, you control Tier Elements monster or a Vice of Starfrost. It's in the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. All face-up monsters your opponent controls will lose 500 attack for the rest of this turn. If this card sends the graveyard, add a Tier Elements trap card from your deck to your hand. This card is so busted, man. An additional facilitator for milling? Okay. We have triple copies of good old La Fenrir, 1 copy of Druid Worm, and 1 copy of Magnamut, because these are still both amazing. We have triple copies of Shayrin, triple copies of Reno Heart, 2 copies of Kelbeck, triple copies of Mudora, 1 copy of Keldo, 2 copies of Hoffins, and then we got triple copies of good old Effect Veiler, the triple Myru, triple copies of Maxi, 1 Instant Fusion, 2 Foolish Burial Goods. We have 1 Terraforming, 2 copies of Scream, 1 Paralinia, triple copies of Imperm, and then 2 copies of the Solic here. So yeah, we're actually playing the Foolish Burial Goods to drop Solic, search for a monster, or if we want to search for the trap card, you can drop Scream. You have 2 very interesting interaction points there for that. Extra here we have 1 Sprite Sprint, 1 copy of Sprite Elf, 1 Asa, 1 Dahark, 1 Gigantic Sprite, 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 Baguski, 1 Time Thief Redor, 1 Zeus with 1 Mud Dragon, 2 copies of Kitagallus, 1 copy of Dracostapelia, 1 Lulu Kalos, and then 1 copy of the Kaleido Heart. Side deck here we have 1 Space Rock, 1 Druid Worm, 2 Magnamut with triple copies of Ghost Reaper, 2 copies of Droll Knockbird, 1 Harpies Feather Duster, 2 Talents, 2 Called by the Grave, and 1 copy of Crime here, wrapping up your main deck. And the last we have here is Exosister. So I was talking about like how I expect this deck to go through a pretty cool evolution here in the near future with the Beasted cards. This is a pretty good example of that. So we have 1 copy of Beasted Druidworm, triple copies of Magnamut, 2 copies of Dimension Shifter, triple copies of good old Martha, triple copies of Ellis, 1 copy of Irene, 2 copies of Stella, 2 copies of Sophia, triple copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, triple copies of Maxi, 2 copies of Prosperity with the 1 Armament, 2 copies of Called by the Grave, triple copies of Pax, triple copies of Latanya, triple copies of Imperm, and triple copies of good old Vadas. Extra deck here, we're actually playing 1 Gravity Controller, that's interesting. 1 Heretic Heavenly Spheres, yeah, they're dragons by the way. We have 1 copy of Donna Dagger for Hire, that's interesting. Let's see, we also have 1 Jabrine, 2 Osophiel, 2 copies of Capit Steel, 2 Ribble Michaels, 1 Volo, 2 Magnifica, and 1 Zeus. And then our side deck here, you have 2 copies of Space Rock, 2 copies of good old Roll Knockbird, 1 Cross-Out Designator, 2 Swords of Concealing Light. Do not underestimate this card as a tech choice. This is by far one of my favorite cards. We have triple copies of Evenly Matched, 2 Anti-Spell Fragrances, and triple copies of Solemn Judgment here, wrapping up your chunk of what's to come down the pipeline here for upcoming formats. So if you've taken anything away from, this video, I hope it'll help you set up here as we head on into Darkwing Blaster, kind of give you guys a little bit of an idea of what's to come and how to challenge the format. So please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patron. Ugh.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.